and welcome. And guys, this is who I'm talking to now. Is his name is Norbert Simmons, and he is a member at the Manchester Lodge. And I'm gonna just ask him a few questions as we're here doing the presentation based on emancipation. So one of the first questions I like to ask you, Norbert, is I guess the if you could share with us a bit of the origins of the friendly societies and I guess how you came to be a part of it.
Sure. Um, the friendly societies really came active with emancipation after 1834, and that was a time when free blacks needed assistance. Really, um, you know, they 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 were enslaved for many years. They had no places to live. They had no income. Many were without jobs after emancipation. Um, they had no medical facilities. Those types of things, all those types of things were provided by their masters. So they, there were people in the community who had certain skills and certain talents. Some had been educated a bit, but not many of them. So they pooled their resources and they started to meet on a regular basis. And this was throughout the island. Many communities had lodges. There's several lodges in every community really. Somerset had maybe a dozen, 8 to 10 lodges alone in Somerset. In my time, I can remember at least 4 black lodges being active in Somerset. So they pooled the resources, and they were the first schools for black people, the first churches, the first places where people assembled for social activities like fetes and weddings and funerals and those types of things. So those were the humble beginnings of the lodges. Many of them had their beginnings in the United States, in England. The lodge I'm part of is Manchester Unity Lodge, which came from Manchester in England. And there are 2 lodges in here. I'm a member of the one in Somerset, Loyal Irresistible, that's located on Main Street in Somerset, Main Road, Somerset Road, 49 Somerset Road, I think it's that address, opposite from Mr. Chicken on the corner there. That's my lodge, and it's in disrepair. Been in disrepair since a hurricane 3 years ago. And I'm also a member, and we need to get that building fixed up. It's historically it's the building. Membership is low. We're without funds, without insurance, so we need to do something because it's a fine representation of an old lodge, black lodge building. Then a member of another one, and that lodge movement was started, I think, in 1884. That building was built. The first lodge was run at Mangrove Bay, where the Trimminghams is. Well, former Trimminghams. Michael Scott's house is there now. Former Trimminghams, the Perch. And that lodge was built and consecrated in 1902. That's how long it's been there. And the tower where the clock is was added at a later time. But the lodge was opened in 1902. I'm also a member of the Manchester Unity Lodge in Hamilton, which is located on the corner of Union and Victoria Street, opposite People's Pharmacy. And that lodge was started in 1779. It's been at that site for 100 and a couple of years. I'm not sure the exact date. But that was a fine example of a black institution, a lodge, and an opera house. Where the parking lot is beside the lodge was an opera house. It was a building where shows and plays and stuff were held. It burnt down in the 70s, I guess it was. Major fire. It was never rebuilt. But that was the Colonial Opera House, a fine place where people went out in their finery to plays and those types of things. So I'm a member of that lodge. I'm a member there because
Mhm.
my lodge in Somerset is not active. We haven't been active for a number of years. Our membership is very low, and so we haven't been meeting. In fact, the membership in most lodges are low. Um, so we need some type of revival, and they're low because the need for lodges and the need for the social interaction that we need, that we had and our forefathers needed, is not there, not grown. Since integration, you can go anywhere, do anything. Those were the places I mentioned. You had your concerts and your plays and your weddings and your parties and celebrations and that. But now you can go anywhere. These young people, they will go on Princess, you
Yeah.
know. They're good. They're good. You say good lodge? No, they don't go lodges.
Mhm.
Um, they go to these other places and nightclubs and celebrate, and understandably. And that happened during my youth. But my parents and my grandparents' time, those were the places that we frequent.
Right. So you think it was probably the, like you said, miss a lot of people's not a part of them anymore. So you think it had a lot to do with when integration started to happen a bit more
For
in
sure,
Bermuda? Okay, because
for sure.
integration started in, I think it was 1960, when
And
we
six,
had the
yeah,
segregation, 1968,
yeah.
69. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And things were opening up before that. I mean, before that, you could go certain places and do certain
mhm,
things. But I can recall when you really couldn't. You know, I'm 70 years old. I'm in my 71st year, and well, I could recall very little of it. But certainly
mhm,
the stories from my parents and grandparents and the experiences that they had, it was very evident.
right.
But things change, so there's no need for the younger persons there's no real interest. Unless people are interested in historically, or because of the parents had a part in it, or the grandparents, you know. And
Yeah.
with them, these younger people would be the great grandparents, because that's how far back it goes. And you recall nothing much is known. And this is why you've got it. People have to be educated. The tours that you gave for the Cedar Bridge um, high school this year at the
Right.
lodge. You saw what little information they had. They didn't know much of their background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they all, places like that, they always wondered what was in there. But when we were coming along, we knew that was a lodge room, and you may not have been permitted because it's somewhat of a secret society what goes on in there. But you knew it was a lodge room, and you may have gone
Right.
in there for some social activity. I
Mhm.
was attracted to it. My parents, um, my grandparents and my great grandparents were large people, and I was a juvenile. I remember dressing up to go when we were all white, in summer uniform. I had on white shorts and white top and white shoes and white socks, I guess, um, and going to Sunday activity, and that was with the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows in Somerset. And the Grand United Order is different. There's several orders. The Grand United is another order different from Manchester Unity, and there were more Grand United orders than others. There's one on Main Road in Somerset,
Yeah.
next to that's where the Jehovah's Witness Church is.
Yes.
Next to Summer Style, the hairdressing parlor just down from St James's Church.
Yes.
That's Grand United. The next one is, and that's called the Victoria and Albert Lodge. That one is in Somerset Grand United. Another one is in Hamilton, and that is on Court Street next to HSBC, Church Street Bank.
Yes.
That is Alexandrina Grand United Lodge. And then the other Grand United is in St. George's, Somers Lodge. That's Grand United. That's where the old St. George theater was. Yeah. And it shows what they did, because, and then that's something that the lodges did do. During days of integration, we had our own movie houses.
Yes.
The Grand United in Somerset, the Victoria and Albert, that was the movies. We saw movies. Summers Playhouse in St. George's, we went there for movies.
Mhm.
Similarly, I think with Alexandrina in Hamilton, we went there. But those were the activities that were put on for people of color, for our people.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting that like you started so many things, especially started from your law, just like you said, the movies, and then you had mentioned even insurance,
Yep.
and you know, the
But the
what's the
movies,
other thing? The
I'm sure the
related,
movies were held by the others too, but we weren't
yeah,
permitted to attend those movies.
right.
So
We
we
weren't
created
really
our own,
exactly,
theaters. And then
exactly.
in time, the businesses, the oligarchy took over the theaters, like the Sands Theater
Hmm.
and the Summers Playhouse Theater in St. George's, and they ran them. They
Right,
rented them from us and then ran them. But that was during integration. But I can remember the
right,
integration in Somerset. I can remember that when you went to movies in when I was a kid, you only could sit certain places. We sat
right,
downstairs. You couldn't sit
right.
upstairs.
And that
Even
was all part of, like, I guess that was the other thing that's later on came with even the theater boycotts. That was part of the
that
movement.
was part of
You
that.
had,
Yeah,
so,
that was the crux of the boycott.
right.
Not in for the theaters. There are places like Island Theater. I remember going there. Rosebank wasn't built then, but Island Theater in Somerset. You go in Somerset on the right hand side, the back
Right.
section. That was the place for the white set. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting there one time. I was curious why. Nobody said to sat there, and nobody said anything. But I got all these looks for from persons that were sitting there because that's not generally where black people sat.
Oh,
And then
okay.
I understood what it was about. I was told after that. That's what
Okay.
I thought it was something like that. I thought it was a special. I thought it was a reserve section. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was reserved, but you didn't have to reserve it. That's where people people were white set.
Yeah. Did
That,
somebody actually come into the theater to you and tell you that you had to move your seat?
no,
No.
not then.
Okay.
Not
Okay.
then, not then. But I was getting so many looks there. And I remember getting up to go to either the bathroom or go to the Foley store across the street for some refreshment or go out dinner for refreshment. And I sat someplace else. I didn't sit in that section because I felt really uncomfortable. I
Well,
went down
imagine that.
further.
And you know what's so fascinating about this is, and with everybody on the presentation, is that you're somebody who experienced that. You got to experience it because a lot
Yep.
of us of a generation of we didn't experience any of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So we hear these stories, but that's what we appreciate so very much with people like yourself is that you get to you actually experienced it
Yeah.
and you get to actually share this with us.
Island Theater. You sit down in Island Theater and those up in the balcony throw popcorn down on you.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe people. I've heard people throw, bags or other litter going down, but
Mhm.
I remember the popcorn experience being thrown over
Right.
at the
But getting
movie.
back to the lodges, and so I remember like it's of hearing that, yeah, like you said, the insurance so how did
Yep,
the insurance started with the Friendly
this
Society
insurance started with the Friendly
lodges, but
Society.
how did it end up
Again,
with the Bermuda
again,
how did it end up with Bermuda government?
well, because
I mean, not Bermuda, but how did it Bermuda
how the
government
government take
eventually
it over.
passed legislation to say that people had to be insured, and then you
Yeah,
insurance companies like Colonial and stuff
yeah,
like that. How did what is
well, what happened? What happened? The insurance we started it because, as I said, the largest institutions where we socialized, we were educated, we went for religious persons, but also for economic, financial reasons. Um, gift clubs were started,
yes, gift
and
club.
the gift clubs were places where you paid a weekly dues. It may have been, a threepence, a penny a week, and you paid that every week. And what the gift club did do, it did provide you with benefits. You got, in the event if you were sick, you got a benefit, a stipend, with the
Yeah,
with the proof of a doctor's certificate. You present it to the gift club, you get a stipend. You get something that week to assist you because you were unemployed, and so that continued. And also at the if if an insured of a member of the gift club passed away, his family would get a death benefit,
mm,
like death insurance,
yeah,
right? Like insurance, life insurance. They get a death benefit, something small, a few pounds,
yeah,
but they get that. In addition to those benefits in terms of unemployment or sick benefit and death benefit, there was also a savings component where there was a savings program where you got an interest on on your investment.
Oh wow, you got interest. Okay.
You got small interest on your investment, yeah. And and get back to regular gift club. The regular gift club at the year end, when you paid so much a week, depending on the number of deaths and the number of sickness claims, there was a residual left over from what your money, and that was shared between the membership.
Right.
So, you know, the more deaths and the more sickness, the less of a share that you got to year end. But whatever was left, that was shared between the membership. And it wasn't much. Most people would roll it over for the next year,
Right.
for part of the year, you know. But in addition to that, it was, as I said, a savings program. And at the year end, you got your savings, less a small administration fee, your savings plus interest, less a small administration fee. And you got that each year. There were people who because we couldn't bank.
Right.
We couldn't go to banks. You know, if you didn't keep it under your mattress, you know, you had a gift club or you had a hand club.
Yeah.
That's where hand clubs came.
So black people were not allowed to have accounts in the bank, or they were not allowed to go to the
not
bank?
in the 1800s.
Okay.
No, not in the 1800s.
But you're informing us, because like
Yeah.
a lot of people of us, a while of a generation, we didn't know, because we're the generation who were always able to have bank accounts.
Not after emancipation, we weren't allowed to do anything. I mean, they weren't accustomed to we weren't accustomed to banks. We never needed a bank.
Yeah.
We never got a wage. We never had any savings. We were enslaved people.
Exactly.
So we had no control of our destiny. We had no need for money.
Right.
We were fed, we were housed, we were clothed, you know. So we had no need. And that's where the gift clubs kicked in and started the financial aspect, assist us with our finances.
Right.